Hello and welcome to Photography Out Loud. My name is Paul Davis, and as always, I'm joined with my colleague Joel Longbone. How are you doing today?
Yeah, good. You?
Yeah, I'm very well, thanks. It's the end of the week, so I haven't got rugby to look forward to this weekend, but
I know that's sad, isn't it?
yeah, we've still got the weekend to look forward to. So yes, please let us know that you're watching live. Let us know that you're there. Give us a hello. We always like to know how everyone is doing. See how you're coping in these strange times. Yes, today we're going to be moving back on to our training later on in the episode. So very much looking forward to picking up on that. But just a little bit of news and updates first before we jump into the training.
Yeah. So next week we've got Paul Sanders joining us again. He's going to be talking about the GFX 100S because he's just got that, I believe, and he's been doing a lot of filming the past few weeks for that. So it'll be interesting to see his thoughts on that. And then we are working with him to organize another project because you guys really enjoyed it, and we really enjoyed the results. If you didn't see yours in it, send them in. We had a few emails that had got lost in junk and naming issues and things like that, but we've sorted that. So please let us know if you've got any that were missed. We definitely want to add those. We've got some stuff in the pipelines for workshops, events, and online videos with Canon coming up, which is very exciting. So yeah, we're working behind the scenes very hard on lots of different ideas, both whilst we're not able to go out and about, and also once we're allowed to go out and about and we're able to safely do them, then we'll be holding events and workshops, all being well. Also, it's our 75th year, so we'll be celebrating that in various ways, hopefully this year, hopefully in person towards the end of the year maybe. So yeah, exciting times ahead.
It certainly is, yeah. And Paul Sanders is becoming a bit of a resident on Photography Out Loud. So but
it's good.
You know, we love having him here. We know that all of you guys watching love having him here as well. So it's just a case of we keep asking him to come back, and he keeps saying yes. So for how long, we do not know.
Yeah.
But
should we look through some of the? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I forgot what I was going to say now.
All right, sorry.
Yeah, let's have a look through some of the comments.
So we've got a good afternoon from David Yeoman. Hello. Joel obviously has a house without heating. Oh, is that because I'm wearing a hoodie?
Getting his branding on.
Yeah. No, I like to.
We can't see the logo. There you
go. No, sometimes I like to run the house cooler. I like to put more layers on if I get the chance. So that's why. Good afternoon to you both from Snowden Curtis. Good to see you. And thank you for the emojis. We like those. Hello from Parkgate, Cheshire. Hello, Howard. Good to see you too. Hello, Michael Ellis. He says afternoon. And Ian says, hi, Paul and Joel. Friday afternoon treat again. I'm glad that you like it and that it's a treat for you. We're trying our best.
Nice.
Never did I think our two ugly mugs on YouTube would be a treat for anybody, but there we go. Yeah. What do I know?
Here we go.
Or on Facebook. Alan says, hi guys, loving my FZ 1000 for you at Christmas. I'm glad. It's a great camera. I think a lot of the bridges, if not all the bridges from Panasonic, are fantastic for the money that you pay. They're just great bits of kit. Hopefully we can get some more into stock when they've been able to make some more. They're quite rare at the moment. So Michelle says, I had mine missed. Do I resend to you, Joel? Yes, please. Joel at cambrianphoto.co.uk and just put Paul Sanders project in the subject and attach the pictures and I'll get those sorted. No problem. Hi to Andrew, because he said hi to us. Good to see you, Andrew. And what are you laughing at? Hey, it's Paul Bryan.
Yeah.
Hi, Paul.
Hi,
Good
Paul.
to see you. Long time no see. I hope you're well. Hey, that's a blast from the past, isn't it? I haven't seen him for a while. So, yeah. So those are the comments so far. Good to see people interacting. It's nice to have people speaking back instead of just us speaking to each other. I feel like that's been pretty much our week.
In between the Excel spreadsheets, of course.
Yeah. Don't you see an Excel spreadsheets?
Yeah, when I close my eyes, it's all I
It's
see.
like
I
a
just see the
crappier
line.
version of the Matrix.
Yeah, really is.
All right.
Oh, dear me.
Gareth Williams says, "Afternoon, chaps. Took this week off to use up leave, and I'm watching you. Sounds like a really good choice." Good to see you, Gareth. Oh, I miss seeing people in the shop. The
Yeah.
humour and the sarcasm and the joviality. Is that the correct way of saying it? I hope so. I'm sure
You're asking the wrong
David
person.
Yeoman will tell me that I've said it incorrectly. I'm hoping not. Oh, Tony. Hey, Tony. Hi, chaps. Nice to see you both. Good to see you too. Loving the emojis.
So
Do you know that people can tell how old you are by the emojis you use?
Really?
Yeah. Apparently Gen Z or Gen Z don't tell millennials off for using the crying laughing face and say that we're old. So
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Don't
Yeah.
they use like the skull or something? That's the new one.
Oh dear. We're all becoming pirates now.
I'll have to ask my children.
Yeah, that's true.
Get the update. Get the update.
Yeah. Stay up to date with the kids.
There's not been a great deal of sort of new announcements and exciting news in the photography world, but
Although
just,
Panasonic brought out the 70 or 75 to 300 for the S series, so we're waiting to get a few more S series into stock soon. I really want to play with the S5. I played with the S1 and the S1R, but I'm very interested in playing with the S5, so that'll be cool. Steve says, "Afternoon, guys. New iPad didn't connect to Bluetooth pods. All sorted. Can hear you now." And he's put a skull, a clown, and what in the world is that face? I'm not quite sure what that is. Do they do emoji faces with wrinkles? I'm not sure, maybe. Hopefully Helen will be on with the dancing cat ladies at some point. Or she might put in like two old blokes with sticks or something, because that'll be a scene.
Yeah.
Paul was saying he's got a bad back, so he's definitely getting to an age where bad backs are an issue.
Thanks for sharing that live, Joel.
The Cambrian bad back, isn't it?
I want to sit straight now. There we go.
The Cambrian bad back is catching.
Yeah, it certainly does. It's all that lovely hard work that we do for our wonderful customers.
It is.
Oh, that's brilliant. So, thank you for all your wonderful comments. So, like I said, not much in the world of news, just a couple of lenses sort of coming out. But I think there is some more stuff sort of in the pipeline that we can't speak about just as yet, but we should start to be seeing some more releases of gear and equipment. Hopefully, I know there's something coming next week from somebody.
Oh, so cryptic.
I know, it's great, isn't it? We can always mention something every week that's coming out, because generally there is something. So we'll be talking about that a little bit next week. So, but for now, I think we've said hellos to everyone. I think we'll jump into some training.
See you on the other side.
Hello and welcome to the training section of Photography Out Loud. If you're joining us, my name is Paul, and with me is Joel. Make sure that we're put in the right way. This is our sort of third installment of the training online workshops that we've been doing. Is that what we decided to call them? I can't remember now.
Tutorials, I think.
Tutorials, online tutorials in photography.
Yeah.
For people that want to get into photography. So, but yes,
or want a refresher.
Yeah. So it's we're starting from the basics. So last couple of weeks, we've been doing things like, how to use your camera properly. We've talked into a little bit about, why you want to learn photography itself, what's important to you, digging down into a little bit of those things. But we wanted to crack on with some more of the training sessions. And this week, what we wanted to talk about was about focusing. So we're
going to focus on focus, Paul.
I thought you said you weren't going to say that live.
Couldn't help it.
You just couldn't.
Just makes up for your pun from last week.
Yeah, which I still can't remember. Something about a wave.
Probably for the best.
Splashing over us. Yeah. But yeah, we wanted to talk a little bit about focusing, the different ways that you can focus, the how and the what and the where. Is all very important, and obviously on different platforms as well. So if you're using interchangeable lens cameras, compact cameras, phone cameras, the principle of focusing is essentially the same for all cameras. They do slightly differ as we go up and down, so we'll try and cover those as much as possible. As always, we are streaming live onto Facebook and YouTube. Anyone that is watching live, please feel free to ask any questions at any time about focusing, and we will get to them as and when, or we can pick them up at the end as well. So just any questions that you got, pop them into the comments and we can certainly get to them. You would probably say that focusing is arguably one of the, things that you would want to do for, a photograph. So there are we still see some wonderful photos that are using techniques where you can blur out your photo to get it. But generally, what we're wanting a photograph that is in focus and sharp the majority of the time, unless you're really experimenting. So obviously today what we wanted to talk about is, how you're going to achieve that, and all the different ways that you can focus, and where you can actually focus in your camera as well. So let's get stuck in. So first of all, what we want to have a look at is essentially how you start this focusing process. So for the meantime, what we're going to be doing is referring to sort of compact cameras, bridge cameras, and cameras that you can change your lenses on. But we still use this sort of phrase even for phone cameras. So especially from a learning point of view, you've probably heard it. People refer to it as the half press. And it sort of refers back to sort of half pressing down on your shutter button. Take the lens cap off. Looks like I'm actually photographing them. There we go. That's always the first thing that you've got to do, isn't it? Make sure you haven't got your lens cap on. So you hear this sort of phrase a lot, the half press that happens. And essentially what the half press is doing is that it engages the camera. So it will not only start your focusing process, depending on what you have set your camera up to, but it will also make sure that it wakes up your camera. So if your camera has been asleep, then it's also a good way of waking up your camera. And as we go through these training sessions throughout the weeks in these, you'll notice that it'll do other things as well. So for instance, it'll switch on your metering, which we'll come to in sort of episodes later on in this series that we're doing. But the main thing that we refer it to is that it's going to start our focusing process. There are some cameras that you can use other buttons on your camera to start this process, but typically, especially straight out the box, the half press on the shutter button is really a skill that you want to learn, whether it be on a compact camera or a camera that you can change the lenses on and off. You'll notice that you have a half pressure on all of these different types of cameras. If it's something that you haven't noticed before, I would suggest trying to find it and be very comfortable with it. So should be like...
It does vary from camera to camera, doesn't it? Some have got quite a spongy action. Some have got quite a drop and then a push all the way through for the picture. So just imagining it from like up here to halfway to taking a picture, it can vary. Like, was it the XH1 that had a really like hair trigger? Like, it literally, you'd tap it and it would take the picture, and so like getting that balance was a bit more difficult.
Yeah.
But then other cameras have a very like almost spongy feel to them. So, and also with a lot of systems, if you're not sure, it'll normally throw up a green box or a green circle just to tell you that it's started to focus for you. It's it's autofocus for you at halfway down. So
I think it was one of the Panasonics as well that the half press was actually just resting your finger on the shutter button. So you didn't actually half press. You just, like, like, I don't know what it is. Yeah, like trackpads on our Macs. You can hover over it, but then you can also click. I think like one of the Panasonics were like that, and it was really weird for me to use it because it was like I was waiting to try and push the half press down. So
it was just there ready.
Yeah, no, it certainly was. Yeah, but this is something that this is something that you definitely want to get familiar with. Make sure that you can half press your camera. Like Joel said before, your camera will do something or tell you that you're doing this. So
it'll give you an indication of some sort, either audible or visual or both.
Yeah. So you'll definitely know when you're doing it, and we'll talk a little bit about what will actually come up on your screen or in your viewfinder that you'll notice to see.
Also, a lot of cameras will tell you if it's not doing it as well.
Yes.
So it'll throw up an error in some way, or it won't beep to tell you that it's. And sometimes it's quite obvious because your lens will keep trying to do this if you're too closely focused, or it's too dark, or there's not enough information for it to be able to focus on for whatever reason. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. So there's two things that we want to look at when it comes to focusing, which is how we focus, and there is also the where we focus. So what we're going to concentrate on first is the how we focus. So how our camera actually obtains focus. And what we find is that there is 3 different modes that are commonly used throughout all of photography. And we're going to have a look at those 3 different things. So the 3 that we want to have a look at is there's something called single autofocus. This is where we focus once. There is continuous autofocus, where essentially the camera focuses all the time. And there is also, if we decide if we wanted to set the focusing ourselves, which we refer to as manual focus.
Use an old school camera or old school lenses, and that's your only option, because a lot of film cameras didn't have autofocus, or you could use lenses, and you can use old school lenses on digital cameras that won't have any autofocus capability, even if they perhaps did when they were on a film camera. They just don't pass over that information, especially if you're using an adapter. But that's just for those of you that are using film cameras instead of digital cameras, which is a perfectly valid use case. A camera that's got film in it instead of a digital sensor.
And I think it was, we saw it on, I think it was on the thumbnail that we used for this week's episode as well. So it's like a Fuji camera, and it's got an old school sort of manual focus Canon lens on it as well. So, there's nothing stopping you using manual focus lenses. And as we go into looking at the manual focus, what you will notice is there is like assists that will be able to help you do that as well. So, but first what we want to look at is focusing once. Okay, so this is commonly sort of known as single autofocus, which we shorten down to SAF. So on a lot of cameras, we see an S-AF, which stands for single autofocus. For all you Canon users out there, this will be referred to as one shot for some reason, and may differ on some other brands as well. But
Fuji uses S, C, and M, don't they, on the little switch dial on the front of most of their cameras.
And then when you look on the menu in the back, it says that you're on SAF or CAF, so you know which sort of mode that you're actually on. But what we want to do is we want to dig down into a little bit and what single autofocus means. What is actually happening when we set our cameras to single autofocus, which incidentally is the default when you take it straight out the box. They are set to single autofocus, and there's a couple of reasons why this is probably the best mode to keep it on. So what we are doing is that when we're using single autofocus, when we start to engage the focusing, so as we half press down on our shutter button, we start the focusing, it will find our subject. Once it finds our subject, it will set the distance, and it will do that once. So it just does it once. So as we're in the engaged position, so the half pressure, so it's like using clutch control on a car. So finds that half pressure.
Ooh, who's using car analogies now, Paul?
Well, I thought I'd drop one in. You love your car analogies.
You just got to get a food one there.
Analogies. Yeah, I was just about to say. So, finding that half pressure, keeping it on there is going to keep you in that engaged position. That's where you want to be when you're focusing. And what single autofocus will do is it will start the focusing, find your subject, lock at that distance, and then stop. Okay. Now, it will only do that once. Okay. We can release it by taking our finger off the half pressure. Okay. So if we didn't want to focus on that distance anymore, then we can let go and then refocus again if we wanted to. Also, another way of disengaging it is actually taking the picture. So what we can do is that we can, it's just on silent mode. Yeah, it is.
Well prepared. Just reset the whole camera.
No.
Paul doesn't like it when people borrow his cameras and change all the settings. Do you, Paul?
No.
It wasn't me.
No, it wasn't you. He won't be watching either, which is really annoying. So, so I don't even know if it's even picking up on the mic, but essentially what you want to do is, you follow the half press, you are looking at the distance that you want it to focus on, and then you're fully pressing down to take the picture. And what the single does is that essentially it stops in that position, which is great. So it means that the really nice thing about single autofocus is that it doesn't keep focusing. So when it says that it is focused and it comes up with those notifications, which we'll talk about in a second, that's gospel. That is set in stone. If the camera has been able to lock on and it says that it's in focus, it is in focus. Okay, so it's a really good way of knowing that something is actually in focus. But there are some things that can come into play. One thing to remember with single autofocus is that you're locking on a distance, not on a subject. Okay, so what is going to happen is that if my camera's over here and I'm focusing on my hand over here, essentially when I half press, it's locking at this distance now. So my finger is still half pressed. And if I move my hand towards the camera, this is now going to be out of focus because it is still focused over here, not here. Okay. So what I'd need to do is, as my hand moved, I need to let go of the shutter button and then half press again to establish that focus again.
So now, single autofocus is quite useful for things that don't move then.
100%.
Like your hand.
My hand can move quite a lot, as it does in these demonstration videos. So it's knowing that you have locked on, but you need to remember that if I move, so just remember that we can move as photographers, or if my subject moves, I just need to let go and push again. Okay.
It's almost like having an invisible tape measure, isn't it? Set at a distance.
It certainly is. Yeah.
So if it was a measuring stick, and it was set at 2 meters, then whatever that stick was touching would be what was in focus. So
yeah,
if you move away, it becomes out of focus, and whatever's at the end of the stick is in focus. And if you move closer, it's whatever the stick now is touching that's in focus.
Yeah, and that's what we come into our workshops in 2022. big long sticks that Joel's going to carry around everywhere to measure the distances for you.
Hang on a second. I'll get that bird in focus. Oh no, it's flown away. Hey, but in video and film and stuff, they do actually go measure the distances, and then they mark them on the lenses so they can do pull focus and push focus more accurately.
Yeah, I mean that's
so it's not as daft as it sounds.
No, it really isn't. Yeah, that's definitely a certain way.
It would be pretty daft for wildlife photography.
Yeah, or landscape photography, focusing on that mountain.
Can you imagine doing portrait photography with a stick pointing, like poking them in the eye?
Yeah, especially when you want the eyes in focus. Yeah. Obviously, one thing that it's not good for, as Joel sort of picked up before, is something that moves around a lot. So the only real disadvantage to single autofocus or SAF is that when something is constantly moving towards or away from you. But thankfully, the cameras have a mode in the camera to sort this out, which is when your subject is moving all the time, we want the camera to focus all the time. And once again, commonly, we refer to this as continuous autofocus, which is shortened down to CAF. So, yeah, just checking.
Are you missing an E?
An E?
Cafe. Right, pulls off. So yeah, C is continuous autofocus.
No, I've learned from last week. So yes, continuous autofocus. Once again, on Canon, they use different names for these things. They call it Servo Autofocus. May come up on your camera as the full name, so Servo Autofocus, or you might just notice the wording Servo. But essentially, what you're doing on this particular mode, regardless of what it's called, is that your lens on your camera is constantly focusing. So it's constantly focusing all the time. You'd still go through the motions of what you would do in single autofocus, is that you would use the half press to engage the focusing. But what's happening now is that it's constantly focusing on the area that you have selected. So once again, if I was my hand here and I've got my camera, then as I half press to engage, and as I move my camera towards and away from the subject, or even if I physically move in and out, what the camera is doing is it's trying to keep the subject in focus. And the key words there is trying, okay? Now, as technology has come along, this trying has become very good. It's very, very reliable. But single autofocus, what we talked about before, is guaranteed. It's gospel, where continuous autofocus isn't, okay? And on some cameras, well, most cameras, I believe, or it can be customized, is that on single autofocus, your camera might not even take a photo without guaranteeing that your picture is in focus, or it'll come up with some error, big bleeping, some red lights might appear on the back of your screen. Where continuous autofocus, it will take the picture, okay? There's less to say that it definitely has your subject. So it's saying, I'm trying, but there's no absolute guarantee. There's no 100% confirmation that it is going to take it. So normally what we say is, you know, you hedge your bets a little bit as learning photography. If you're using continuous focusing, you may want to set your camera maybe onto some sort of burst mode as well and rattle off a couple of photos, and you're playing the odds a little bit. So, so you're getting at least one of those pictures that you'd want actually in focus. Now, a lot of people say to me is, you know, well, don't I want my lens to be focusing continuously all the time? Okay, so one of the reasons that is it doesn't confirm, and the second reason, it doesn't actually do very well on subjects that are still. So once again, if I was on continuous autofocus and if I half press now, my subject is absolutely still. What's happening to the focus is that it's buzzing around, sort of around my subject, because it thinks my hand is going to move. So what it's doing is it's going, right, is is Paul's hand going to move? Is it not? And what it's doing is that it's trying to prejudge. So what you might find is that, especially if you're wanting a certain area of your photo actually in focus, and you're on continuous, it may differ. So it's going to slightly change position sort of all the time. And this is preferably why a lot of the manufacturers set the standard to single autofocus, because it does guarantee a sharp shot. And typically we use the continuous autofocus for things like sports and wildlife.
And people that are moving.
And people that are moving. Yeah, well, it's essentially
like my children.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you can use it on anything, and obviously this is part of the learning experience, and this is where you'd want to use, right, well, this subject is moving, do I need continuous autofocus? So something that helps me is that I try and stay on single autofocus as long as I possibly can until it feels awkward. And when I mean awkward, I mean if I've got to be doing this, constantly releasing my finger off the half pressure and then pushing it back down again, so my finger looks like it's spasming on top, then this is probably the time where you would need to change to the continuous autofocus. Obviously, depending on how spasmy, is that even a word?
I don't know. I'm not sure that's the right word. When your
finger goes into spasm,
yeah.
What's
really
the word for that?
I don't know. Anyway, I think we get the idea. But when you have to keep doing this a lot, your fingers vibrating on the shutter release or something. I don't know.
That'd be the time that you'd want to sort of you'd want to change over and move on to it. And then the third and final type of focusing mode that we've got is the manual focus. So manual focus is great for when you really want to slow down and you really want to concentrate on what you're doing. And it's a lot where the experimental stuff comes in. So you mentioned before, Joel, about on filming, they would measure distances and then set them. Especially on older manual focus lenses, they would have the distance sort of workings
on a scale.
Yeah. So you'd be able to set them and even put like little markers on your lens. But manual focus, you'd still want to follow the same way that you would with the two other modes. So you actually still want to half press the shutter button, okay, when you're on manual focus, because what that'll do is that'll engage
on
the camera.
Modern cameras. On film cameras, that won't work.
It will on autofocus film cameras. So yeah, and won't really do anything on a mechanical one. So a half pressure it will light up the metering, but still won't take a photo. But you won't get the assist. So on very old cameras, but they're not that old, are they really? On manual focus.
They're older than I am.
Yeah, I suppose so. But on manual focus, sort of like you're referring to like SLRs, aren't you? The manual focus SLRs, Joel. Yeah. So if anyone's had the pleasure of using one of these, you get something what they call a split screen in them. They're absolutely a wonderful experience to use, and essentially you would line up something
dark.
Yeah. You would line up something vertical in the middle of the frame, something on the distance that you want it to. And as you start to turn the lens on your camera, what will start to happen is that the split screen will come together until you get that line that you're looking at just comes.
Paul's getting all nostalgic now.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So normally focus assists, what we find when we're using manual focus is that there'll be some sort of circle that will appear in either on your screen or in the viewfinder. When you're on manual focus, if you keep turning your manual focus wheel, this will differ on certain cameras. On some compact cameras, you do actually get a wheel sort of on the front, but you may actually need to use a different wheel. If you're not too sure where to find the manual focus wheel that you need to change, just drop it in the comments below and we can answer it in there for you. But essentially, you would turn this back and forth until the focus assist would say, I'm in focus. Now, manual focus is really great for things like landscapes. So, you might be waiting for, for a cloud to come over into a nice position. So you might as well get the focusing out the way. Okay. So while you're waiting for it, so you can switch to manual focus. You can get your focusing absolutely bang on, dead how you want it. And then you know that as the moment starts to build in front of you, you don't need to worry about trying to refocus the camera. You can just leave it in manual focus, get it set, and away you go. So
it's really useful.
Focus.
Yeah, it's really useful for single shots in landscapes, but it's also really useful for focus stacking if you want to go more in depth into your landscape photography. It's great for macro photography where you want to kind of build up a number of shots to stack, just like you would in landscapes. Great for night sky photography as well, where autofocus is, in most cases, apart from some more modern mirrorless cameras, is entirely useless because cameras aren't very good at focusing on things that are completely black with only little specks of light, much like the dark sky. But I think that there's something about manual focus that you think with all of the modern autofocus capabilities with face detection, eye detection, and all this, and even like animal detection and things like that, manual focus is something I still use quite a lot because I find it quite useful to be able to have that control over what's happening. It's especially useful for still life creative shots where you have a shallow depth of field and you really want one certain point in focus, and you know that you can take the time to get exactly what you want in focus, because not even all autofocus systems will get bang on what you want to focus on. I think that's useful to know. Well, it isn't. On flowers, where the stamen comes out quite a lot, it'll often try and get one part in focus when you want the other part in focus, and you don't have enough control to be able to move it around to get it bang on. So manual focus, I find, is easier and faster.
Yeah, I think from a easier and faster point of view, definitely, because there's something regarding manual focus is that, well, it can only focus towards or away from me. So, and switching it to manual, it becomes a very mechanical thing, and by turning something, it's either going to go this direction or it's going to go the other direction. And I think that really, really sort of helps with it. So there probably would be a more technical way, so an auto way of getting that stamen sort of in focus. But as always in photography, there's going to be lots of different ways that you can use your camera depending on what you prefer. So Joel, you mentioned before about things like face detection, eye detection, even I heard you say animal detection there as well. So we're seeing a lot of these modern cameras actually pick up on things like faces, eyes, animals, pets.
My camera currently has a green box around it, and every time I move, the green box moves because it's on the facial tracking, which is amazing that it can find your face. So it's quite interesting as well that it will work even on like a print of somebody's face, like a magazine or a poster. It'll still lock on that as well. So.
But all this new technology falls into the area of where you focus. And when I say where, generally what I'm referring to is where within the frame that we're focusing on. So yes, things like mobile phones, most compact cameras sort of on the market now. We're starting to see a lot of interchangeable lens cameras that have this sort of technology built in, where if they see a face and you've got things like face detection switched on, which both of us have switched on at the moment, it will it'll do a very good job of, no matter what you throw in front of it, to keep things like yourself sort of in focus, or the person that you're photographing. Or if you're videoing yourself on a live stream, then it will also work very well for things like that as well. There are variant different ways of, where in the frame that you can actually focus on. And typically when you buy a more modernish camera or a modern phone, they will have things like face detection sort of built in and switched on straight out the box. The rest of the time, the most common sort of thing that we see with where we focus when the cameras come straight out the box is that they're on a mode of all, and every manufacturer calls this differently, which is really quite annoying. But essentially, on your camera, there'll be a setting that you'll be able to set that does say something like focus area or focus point. So they tend to refer it to as that way. And within that menu, there'll be something called all. And what all does, it basically means it's going to use all of its focusing areas or focusing points available in the frame, and the camera is going to pick for you. So typically what we find is that if I was photographing myself now and I didn't have face detection switched on, if I put my hand in front of here, on all, it would focus on my hand, because it's probably the biggest thing in the frame at present, and it's also the closest to the camera as well. So generally, cameras like to focus on the first thing that they see that is fairly prominent within the frame. That's the way that they're sort of built. So it's just something to bear in mind. And that's where things like face detection for people, and as we're starting to see this animal detection kick in, is really starting to change the game a little bit as well. But what we can do is that we can actually shrink this area down as well if we wanted to. So we can have all area, or we can say move it into a group or a larger area. So basically just taking it from the whole of the frame that you're seeing here, and I can take it down into this area here. So what it's going to do is not use all of the frame to judge it. It's just going to use this section here. And then once again, the camera is still deciding. Then what it can go down into is a single area as well. So what we can do is we can just have one point on our screen. Now at this point, we can change if we wanted to. And this is probably a mode that we see a lot of people use.
I think it's one of the most useful modes in terms of when you want very direct focus, especially if your camera doesn't have, for example, face detect or eye detect. Having a single point of focus is ideal for portraits. It's probably one of the only modes you'd ever use for portraits if it was one person and, like it was a decent headshot and you wanted the eye in focus, which you most often do in portraiture. That's like the best mode to have because it'll just be bang on. And then if you combine that with continuous autofocus on other subjects, then it's very useful to be able to keep tracking a person's eye or something like that, or the body of an animal or something as they're moving across or around your frame. It's one of my favorite ones, to be honest, especially because I came from a mindset, especially years and years ago, of kind of center focus and then recompose. Back in the day when focus was maybe not as useful because you had to keep moving a silly wheel to move your focus point around rather than a joystick like you do now. So
yeah, and generally the lack of focusing points as well that we saw on sort of the newer when autofocus started to come in, you'd either be able to focus on the middle or the side or the other side.
Have that X.
Yeah. Or once again, you could still have all of those active. So the camera would decide between the three which one it would want to focus on. So what we see a lot of days now is that if you have an interchangeable DSLR, there's still dots within your viewfinder that you're able to see. There's generally quite a lot of them now. So typically when you buy a camera, some sort of salesman will come up to you and go, oh yeah, it's got 26 focus points on it. And this is just referring to like where in the frame that you can actually do. So the advantage of using all of the frame is that you're more likely to get something in focus. Now, when you shrink this area down to a group, or even right down to a single point, it can be a little bit more difficult to actually obtain focus. So we mentioned at the very beginning of this training session that sometimes the cameras fail to obtain focus, for some reason. Now we're seeing this less and less and less now. And if you have a modern camera, we go, it's not going to focus on that. There's just nothing there to focus on. And lo and behold, it does it. And we just go, wow, what are photographers needed for now? But for instance, like a camera might struggle to focus on if the focus point was over Joel's jacket, okay? Because it's very, very dark. There's not a lot of detail there. So if you had a focus point downing that area, you might find that the camera is struggling a little bit, okay? If you were wanted to focus on Joel's jacket opposed to his face, then what you might do is move the focus point in between the jacket and the background. It will still focus on the first thing that it sees, so it's not going to focus on the background and Joel's jacket. So it'll still focus on the jacket, but what you're doing is you're giving it like an edge to photograph on, and that edge is sort of what cameras like to. Now, as you start to increase these points that you're able to use, the more chance it does to find an edge to focus on quicker. So it's, once again, that mix of, right, what's best to use. If I want the precision, then I move down to a single point, but I need to make sure that my single point of where I'm looking at has enough detail to actually focus on. Or do I want the camera to be a little bit more involved, but then I might lose a little bit of that precision of where it's actually going to focus.
Yeah, I think we'll go into more detail another time because we don't want it to be too heavy. But understanding the focus system that your camera has will make a big difference as to what you can and can't get in focus with ease. And understanding that whilst cameras are very, very clever, they still have to deal with a lot of what we still have to deal with, but in a more mechanical sense, that sometimes they can't see as well as we can, or they see differently to us. So something that seems quite obvious that, well, that should be in focus, isn't as obvious to a camera for various reasons. And just like a car or any sort of like machine. Hey, what?
We wanted the food analogy.
Okay, food analogy, just like an oven, cooker or a microwave. It won't always cook consistently or in the way that you want it to. There's a lot of variables involved, and what you use inside your cooker or your microwave will change what it can do. It's not intelligent enough to know exactly how heavy it is, how dense it is, how much fluid or moisture is in that item that you're cooking. So you kind of have to work within the realms of what you understand that you're going to cook and what the cooker can achieve. And I think that's probably the beauty and the intrigue for a lot of photographers. And the beauty and intrigue of photography is the fact that it's you working with a tool. The camera is not what makes you a good photographer. You are what makes you a good or a bad photographer. The way in which you think and the way in which you use the tool that is the camera for the circumstances that you use it in. Because there's a lot of times where I've seen people use, substandard quality cameras or not very capable cameras, but because they understood how to use them, then they were able to produce some really, really stunning results still. And I think that's important, that we will often talk about some amazing cameras. We're going to talk about the GFX 100S next week, which is phenomenal. 102 megapixels, it's bonkers. It's a very clever camera, very capable. But equally, it's useless if it's not used by somebody that can use it and understand how to use it. And it's not designed for certain subject matters, where other cameras will be far better at whatever the task is in hand than it is. And that's important for us to help you understand is whatever you have as a camera is going to be a better starting point than not having a camera at all, and just learning the ways in which it excels or it struggles will help you become a better photographer, because you'll understand how the camera works, and you'll start learning ways of kind of, okay, it's not going to do that, so I'll do this. Like we'll perhaps talk further into the future about zone focus, which is a very useful technique when a camera is either quite old or is in circumstances of very dark light or lack of contrast, where actually you just telling the camera within a reason, you just understand the settings that most things within a certain region will be in focus or close enough. And that's actually quite liberating, to stop having to rely on a camera to kind of sometimes get it in focus and sometimes not. So yeah, whilst focusing is very important, some cameras will be very good. We're quite lucky to get to play with cameras that have got really, really good autofocus, but still some of the cameras that perhaps people start off with as beginners that aren't as good still have a lot of functionality, and you'll learn a lot about focusing by just getting out there and giving it a go. So.
No, definitely. So, so that concludes sort of the introduction into focusing, and just sort of really sort of echoing sort of what Joel said. It's finding that sort of rhythm, that relationship with the camera that you have, knowing that we're here for backup and support as well. So we have to speak very broadly and very loosely, because there are lots of different cameras on. There's a loose brief joke in there somewhere, isn't there?
You and loose briefs makes me wonder.
So it's if you do have any questions regarding specifically your own camera, there's loads of ways of getting in contact with us. So you can contact us via email, which is just our general sales at. So you go sales@cambrianphoto.co. You can get co.uk. You can you can get us on Facebook. So at Cambrian Photography,
Instagram.
Our website has a chat section on there as well, which is currently a message system, but you'll still get through to us. There's absolutely loads of ways of getting in contact with us, or you can just drop your questions down into the comments below, and we can certainly get to them there as well. So
yeah, great. Let's go through some of the comments quickly. We've got Nigel Thomas saying, hello, Cambrian. Hello to you, Nigel. Good to see you. Hi, Graham. He says, hi, guys. Good to see you too, Graham. Hope all is well. Michelle says, resent. Can you let me know when you get them, please? I will do. I'll try and do that as soon as I get off here. Howard says, done a few unintended shots with the Ollie M1 Mark II. Yep. I think that's one of those things sometimes, is getting used to it and understand kind of. I think that's an interesting thing about cameras. You kind of think they'll be quite consistent between different manufacturers, but there's a lot of difference between how the shutter responds. I guess we probably don't notice it as much because we're just so used to showing people different cameras all the time. But I remember one camera, I was like, goodness me, am I going to lose my whole finger trying to take a picture? It was like so far down. So, right. Gwynvor says, hi, my XT3 seems very slow in waking up compared to my D500, which is instant. I do press the shutter, and even in boost mode, it's a bit slow. Any ideas, please? I guess it depends how long it takes. Possibly double checking the firmware as the latest might help, or doing a reset. But just by their very nature, DSLRs tend to wake up a lot faster than mirrorless. It's just the nature of the way the systems work. There's a lot less computing power required for a DSLR to kind of start and get ready, because it's not got to turn on the back display or the viewfinder, because it's also all kind of mechanical, isn't it? So.
Also in the XT3 menu system as well, there is it will go to sleep after a certain amount of time, and then it will power off after a certain amount of time. So there is a major difference from waking up a camera from sleep and waking it up from off. So off, it's got to do a full check through your camera. So it double checks that your sensor is working properly. It will check the speed of your memory card. So all these things do take a little bit of time. So you can go into the menu system and you can have a look at how long your camera does to go to sleep and how long it actually goes off. Because it sounds to me that your camera is switching off rather than going to sleep. So just have a look at those sort of options.
One other thing,
standard are out the box, so we need to check on that.
One of the other things is that I get into the habit of, if I know I'm going to use the camera soon, but I don't want to bring it up to my eye, I'll just sometimes tap the shutter halfway down just to kind of get it to wake up and be ready. It's especially useful at events and weddings and concerts and things like that, where you might not be using the camera all the time, but you know that there might be a shot coming up. So you just kind of every so often, every few minutes, just tap the camera and make sure it's ready. And you can tend to, especially if it's got a inbuilt body image stabilization system, you can kind of feel it shake a bit. You can feel it kind of get ready to go. So that might be useful. Craig says, how slow you're talking. Mine takes 1 to 2 seconds to wake up when in sleep mode. Okay, that was kind of a response to Gwynfor, I believe. Good afternoon, boyos, from Craig. Good afternoon. He's made no comments about what we look like or anything, which is different to usual. Andrew says, it would be dafter if the wildlife was lions, not birds. I think that was in reference to my stick comment. You're right. Yeah. Unless he's just eaten, and it'd be okay. A1 Servo on 5D Mark III is brilliant. Did some shots for a gymnast's portfolio. Great results using this setting. Not usually necessary for my landscape. No, I think that's very true. 5D Mark III is a great camera. And manual is macro magic. It is. It's very, very useful, especially when you want to get into stacking and things like that. It's probably really the only way to go, unless you've got something like the Olympus system that's fantastically good at macro stacking built-in camera and things like that. So definitely manual for the win. Gareth says, I still have my first proper camera. It doesn't work anymore due to poor storage, but it had a split center point focusing, a Praktica MTL5B, a great way to learn. It definitely makes you I don't want to use the phrase, but focus on your focusing. You really have to pay attention, otherwise you're not going to get very good shots. So Gary says, evening guys, late, sorry, no worries, good to see you. Congratulations on becoming, I think it's a Paramount ambassador. I think that was the phrase he used to say. So congratulations on that, Gary, well deserved. Great stuff. And Gwynfor says, cheers, that's what I have to do. So there we go. Hopefully that'll make your life a bit better when you're trying to get your camera to wake up and be useful. But if you do think it's taking longer than you think it should, then give us a shout and we'll go through any of the settings with you. Not a problem. So there we go. That's
brilliant. Well, once again, some lovely, amazing comments there from all of you wonderful people that choose to watch us here on Photography Out Loud. So as always, we do thank you very much for tuning in. And please make sure that you, everywhere that you can, make sure that you like and share the video. Share it, let everyone know.
One other thing, if you so desire to show the love you have for us, we'd love it if you could give us a review. So you could give us a review on Facebook. I think they call them recommendations now.
Recommendations now.
If you'd recommend us to your friends or somebody you meet, then that would be great. Say nice things. If you think we're not very good, let us know before you make any nasty comments. Google is great for us as well. That's a star rating system. If you could give us a star rating on there, that would be fantastic. It really does help us. And also Trustpilot. We know a few of you have been giving us some Trustpilot reviews the past week or two, which is fantastic. We're very, very grateful. But if you could do that, or you've bought from us recently, you might get an email that asks you and invites you to give us a review. Any reviews would be fantastic. It really helps us. It lets people know that we're good at what we do. Obviously, with the internet, it's harder to find people that are perhaps good at stuff without somebody saying so. So it's really nice if people can read how much you enjoy working with us, or buying from us, or even watching the videos. But it does really help us, and it helps other people to find out about us. And after 75 years, hopefully we can earn a few more 5-star ratings. So
yeah. No, that's lovely. Well, I take that's your final words before we break up for this weekend, Joel. Or have you got any more to add?
No,
That was it.
Just want you to all have a great weekend.
Yeah, oh, that's brilliant. Big thank you ever so much for watching us. It's always lovely to see you here. Like Joel said, recommend us as much as you can. Share these videos as much as you can. Everything that you do really does help us sort of promote what we love actually doing here, and spreading the word about enjoying photography, which is our main goal here at Cambrian Photography and on Photography Out Loud. So right, until next week, which is it next week? Yes, it is next week, isn't it? Paul Sanders next week, going over the GFX 100S. Absolutely can't wait. We'll see you then.
Really
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye now.